Good afternoon, everybody. So today we are replacing the intake manifold on the Audi, and there are questions that I had, and I know there's questions that other people are going to have, and I'm going to help everybody out because I couldn't find that online, and I spent the money on the two different intakes. And by spend the money, I mean make a mistake and then have to go back and fix it, because nobody actually spends money on an extra part. This right here is the 2-liter manifold from an EOS A3. You'll see them for $100, and you're gonna wonder the difference, because $100 price point versus what is almost a $500 price point after shipping. What is the difference? The main difference here, we'll go with the minor difference first, is we have a tab back here. This tab is actually used to hold this piece, but on this vehicle, this piece is over there, while on the A4 it's actually over here on the left. And so you'll see that same tab, same shape, everything is exactly the same for this component, but the tab is actually moved here versus in the middle. The second thing you're going to notice is everything else is the same except for the runners, and the difference there is these runners, while these are broken right now, don't have a notch. So you'll see they're flat, they're perfectly straight. And you'll see here that these runners, let's get a better angle, actually have a notch in them. And while the notch is kind of on a random angle for each of them, like this one's outside, this one's closer to the back, both of those are closer to the back, while these are closer to the front. That's probably just as they've done some calculation with the flow across this as the air comes from the throttle body, or the throttle controller, across to each of these. Now these do not have that, and these do not stay together. These completely broke. And so if you're getting codes, what you're going to be seeing is the codes are going to show piston 1, which is up here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right, obviously. Piston 1's going to throw misfire codes, piston 2 will throw misfire codes, and by the time piston 4, or 3 back here, throws a misfire code, you'll get the all cylinders misfiring. And of course you're going to have a nightmare when that comes around, because you're like, okay, that's not good. What the hell is that? That's going to be expensive. Kind of expensive, but you can do it yourself, save a little money. Otherwise Audi is going to, you just drop your wallet off at the front desk. Now these flaps, this is piston 4 back here, and so piston 4 actuator still works. Now the others are going to remain open with the weight of this pointed down pretty much most of the time. There's no control anymore, and it's going to try to flow as much air as possible. That's why you're going to get the misfire at idle, because at idle these are actually supposed to close to limit the amount of air going into the engine. And since they're wide open all the time, you're going to get misfires. And for sure 1 and 2 first. You're going to see the check engine light come on, and you'll be like, okay, why am I getting 1 cylinder misfires? And then you're going to look up, why am I getting 1 cylinder misfires? And you're going to find that awful freaking thread about the guy who had Audi replace, or a third-party garage replace a part in his car for several $1,000s, and then it actually not be the problem, and he loses his ass on money and then ends up parting out the car. Now that was a nightmare to read for an hour, and I'm not happy about it. I did buy spark plugs. I haven't put them in yet because I kind of want to make sure that this is the problem. I'm sure the spark plugs are fine. It's just good maybe to replace them. I thought about replacing injectors and then realized, oh yeah, that's right. Those are expensive, especially for this vehicle. They're about $100 is the minimum you can get, and that's actually some rebuilt injectors. So of course, when you take all of this off, you have your connector up here. If you want to write this down, you have this vacuum hose, 2 plugs down here. These plugs kind of tuck under here. One of them is for the runner control. We do have a screw here, a bolt here. You'll have to take the screw out of the bottom, and I'll show you the tools for that. You have 2 screws over here. You also have this screw, throttle body screws when you're pulling this off. Those are going to be here, 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 and here, and you're going to have, those are the 2 screws I just showed you, as well as the 2 screws holding on one here and one here holding on the fuel rail. And then, of course, you're going to have your longer bolts, these longer ones, across the top, and then your 2 on the bottom, which are going to be in the center under those injectors. You also have your 2 nuts, one nut here, and a hose. And I recommend pulling that whole module off because this is the one connection I thought I wasn't going to break. I really hate hose to plastic connections because they'll break off. This is the other hose that plugs into what actually controls this. So here, and then don't forget there is a plug that plugs on this, and you're basically going to reach under here and push back on that. I'll walk through it again in a moment. On the other side, we're going to show you kind of all the tools you need. In order from use, you're going to need a star bit. The star bit will fit pretty much every screw. So you have this will fit these 3 screws as well as these 2 screws and the fuel rail screws and these main manifold holding screws. You're going to have this. This is the one thing you're going to have to buy a part for. And this is pretty sure this is a T25. We're just going to pull that off. It is a T27, and I think T30s will work as well. This is actually a little too small, but it's not going to strip it because these are not torqued down very much. Next, you'll also be able to use that on the throttle body here. And like I said a second ago, I did not want to disconnect any of these harder hoses because I knew I was going to crack these. So I just took that hose off here where it's not getting heat soaked. It'll be easier to take off, maybe not damaging it. Next, we're going to look at the fuel line. So we're going to flip this over. This fuel line here has 2 nuts on it. You'll have to take off both to get the fuel rail off. You'll pull it off on this side and then unscrew here. This is going to use a 18 millimeter wrench. I use a short one to get back there and kind of undo everything so I can get a couple more spins in per grab. And then we're going to use a 13 millimeter socket for this nut, which sits here underneath. And that's one of the brackets that holds up the car, or holds up the manifold to the engine, kind of keeps it from bending, stretching, or cracking if someone were to lean on it, I guess, is really what it's going to be doing. Other than that, you'll have this bolt, and this bolt is going to be at the very bottom of this bracket, and you kind of have to take the bottom one off because the way this unwedges itself from the injectors, it needs to have that freedom of movement. So I go ahead and remove this. You can try to do it without it. It's going to be pretty difficult, but the only reason I would try without it is if you can't buy this. What this is a 12-point bit. It's an M10. I've seen some online for different sizes, people say, but it's an M10 period. That's the only one that works, and it fits really, really well. So, I mean, I have the other sizes. Sometimes they sell other pieces, and these are not going to strip. Audi uses those on a lot of different things, such as like CV axles, stuff like that. So if you have an Audi, you might as well buy them. You can get a set like this. Pretty sure I got this from Harbor Freight. See, that's an M8, M6, and then the largest one I think is an M12. Yeah, M12. It's kind of hard to see. You'll need the socket driver, an extender, this extension as well. It'd be good to have a long extension, and then a magnet would be key. I love this thing. It's so that as you're going, you can pick these screws up. They're not going to drop into your engine because then you got to take the tray off the bottom of the car. And if you take the tray off the bottom of the car, you're going to be sad for the rest of the day. That should be everything that you need to look at. Now, I know that was a quick overview, and you got to take the oil filter off and just buy the right manifold.